What is up, everybody? It is John Papp here from JohnPappFitness.com, coming at you live from Acceleration Fitness. Not really live, but that's okay, it's the recording. And I'm here with your 5 tips to lose weight, gain strength, and get jacked. And this week, I'm gonna talk to you about 5 ways that you can measure your body fat, all right? So, measuring your body fat is important if you're starting out in your fitness journey, or if you're just interested to see where you're at and kind of want to see, the progress that you make. So there's 5 different ways, 5 different main ways that we can measure our body fat, and I'm going to talk to you about those and kind of give you the pros and cons and kind of the general accuracy of them all. So number 1, this is going to be your cheapest method and potentially the least accurate, and that is going to be a handheld device called a bioelectrical impedance machine. Now basically, the basic kind of background of how it works is you hold it out like this, you enter in your stuff, like just your stats, say your weight, age, all that stuff, and that's kind of used for calculations for BMI and stuff, not necessarily the body fat, but you hold it out in front, give it a squeeze, not too hard, and it sends a very light electrical impulse through the handles, and it kind of works off the water in your body, and it will come back with a reading. It'll give you your body fat and then also BMI, but what we're talking about there is body fat. Now this is a decently accurate measure. It's a cheap machine relative to the other methods that I'll kind of explain. A couple $100 would get you one of these machines, and so it's very cheap compared to some of the others that are going to be thousands upon thousands of dollars. So cheap, but with that comes some variability within the readings. Now I've seen, most of the time that's what we use just because it's the ease of use, and it's not a $10,000 machine. And most of the time it's pretty accurate within 2, 3, 4% on average, I would say. Sometimes it's right on when you compare it to a DEXA or some other method that I'll talk about in a second here, but it's pretty accurate. Now, the bad part is it can be inaccurate based on your hydration levels, whether you're dehydrated, overhydrated, and your sodium intake can also screw it up and give you some really wacky readings, 10, 12, 15%. But again, that's if, with changes or with very high, low hydration or sodium can play with that. And I don't see that very often. Occasionally you'll get one that does that, but for the most part it's pretty accurate. It gives you a baseline. Obviously it's not exact, but it kind of tells you, okay, you're going down or you're going up. You went down approximately 5% or whatever it happens to be. And it is especially helpful for someone who does have a lot of body fat to lose, because it's going to give you, say 35% or whatever it happens to be, a very high percentage. Now it's going to give you a pretty good idea, if it goes down from 35 to 23 over the period of time, then obviously it's not exact, but it does give you a pretty good idea of about how much you've lost. So just keep that in mind if that is the method you choose. You can find them online if you're interested. You can find them on Amazon. Some stores, electronic stores sell, but not very many. Pretty much you have to order them online if you are looking for that. Now, number 2 is Caliper. So this is kind of the old school method. This is the pinch the fat method on multiple sites of the body. Now this can be a very accurate method, or it can be a very inaccurate method. It all depends on the how many times the technician has done it, how much experience they have, and also when you get down to a low body fat percentage, it can kind of screw with things, if you're just grabbing skin, because there's not a lot of body fat. Now, with that, we're going back to the technician, they're not as popular anymore because all the new technology, like I said, the handheld devices, or there's other devices I'm going to talk about soon that kind of have taken over. But some people still use them, but just be careful if you get that done. Just make sure the person is experienced. Like personally, myself, I only have done them a handful of times on people, so I would not be a very good candidate to be your technician to read your body fat with calipers, just because that's not what we use here. I don't have a lot of experience with it. I've done it before, but not very often. So just keep that in mind if you decide to go that way. And these are probably the cheapest method. It is the cheapest method. So just keep that in mind. Now, number 3 is the DEXA scan. Now, the DEXA scan is kind of recognized as the best and gold standard. So basically what it is, it's an X-ray machine. And you lay on it. It's a very, very, very expensive machine, like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on what model you get. And it is got a live audience. I'll edit that out. So that is a very expensive machine, tens upon thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands if it's a brand new top of the line machine. And it works on the X-ray, so basically you lay on it, you stay perfectly still, an X-ray goes, or X-ray machine, I don't know the technical term for it, goes over top of you, takes the screen, and then it gives you a readout. And it's pretty cool because obviously it's an X-ray so you can see your bones, but then it also can see the mass, the lean body mass, and it uses the X-ray. It's very exact. It gives you exact measurements of how much muscle mass you have in your right thigh versus your left, or your right bicep versus your left. So it's pretty cool there. You can see differences there, and also it can be used for bone density screenings too in the medical world, but that's kind of separate from body fat. And it'll give you some other readouts and calculations based on that, like RMR, resting metabolic rate. That isn't completely accurate. You're better off just using an actual resting metabolic rate machine for that. That is number 3. Number 4 is the bod pod. Now the bod pod is the one that looks like a spaceship, kind of like an egg-looking thing, a white egg-shaped thing with a window on the front. And how it works is you open it up, like half of it opens. There's a little seat inside. You sit down inside. The technician closes it up, and then it seals airtight, locks you in there, and then it makes its measurements based off the air pressure within. Make your ears pop, just like, you know, with the pressure changes, just as if you were in an airplane. It's pretty accurate, but it's not quite as accurate as the DEXA. I've had both the DEXA and the bod pod done, and the DEXA has always been more consistent and accurate with that, especially once you get to a lower body fat percentage, because it just doesn't necessarily have that accuracy that the DEXA does, because it's basing its calculations off of pressure versus actual measurements of your body. So it is a good option though, and with the DEXA and bod pod, most of the times they're only found at universities or sometimes independent stores. Shout out Fit Body 360. They are in the area. If you're in the Auburn Hills, Rochester, you know, suburbs of Detroit, north or in the area, they're really good. They have all of the stuff there, and they're really knowledgeable with that and nutrition and some other cool stuff. So check them out. I'll link them up in the bottom here if you want to see that. So that is number 4. Number 5 is underwater weight. Now this used to be recognized as kind of the gold standard before the DEXA came along. And again, this is going to be found pretty much only at universities and maybe a few facilities here and there, but it's not really used as much anymore. Basically, there's a little pool and there's a certain amount of water in it. You put yourself in there underwater, and the technician reads off where that line goes to, and then there's a calculation that you base off of that, and it'll give you your body fat percentage from that. Now, with that, it is very accurate, but it's a lot easier to do DEXA, and it can kind of freak some people out to be underwater like that. You have to stay down, holding your breath for a certain amount of time while it measures, or while they can get the measurements. So it can kind of freak people out if they're, you know, claustrophobic or scared of the water being under like that. So that is number 5. Those are the 5 ways you can measure your body fat. If you can, definitely go for a DEXA. I would highly recommend the DEXA overall, but all of them are good options. They all have their pros and cons as I discussed. And that is it, guys. So I will link up Fit Body 360 in the bottom. And as always, check out the social medias at John Papman Fitness on pretty much everything. I'll put that on the screen, and J-Pap on Snapchat. As always, any questions you have, send them my way. Email, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. Comments below. I will answer your questions to the best of my ability or find out the answer if I don't know. So that is it, guys. Episode 33 or something like that is done, guys. Have a great week. Keep chasing it.